I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, if you'll read the prepared announcement and call the roll.
June 27, 2017. Please be advised, this meeting is being taped for video and audio broadcast. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Bonifant.
Here.
Mr. Porcello.
Here.
Mr. Hempstead.
Here.
Mr. Kimmel.
Here.
Mr. Sachinelli.
Here.
Ms. Melendez.
Here.
Mr. Sarasis.
Present.
Ms. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Sims.
Present.
Mr. Kites.
Here.
Ms. Maggio. Mr. DePalma. Ms. O'Toole-Gianderco.
Here.
Mr. Igneri.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
I did.
Here, okay. Okay, we have 13 present. We have a quorum. First item of business is the acceptance of the minutes, regular meeting, June 13th, 2017. Moved by Mr. Igneri. Any corrections, deletions, omissions, additions? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as submitted? Aye. All right. Opposed? Abstentions? Ms. Bowman and Mr. Sims abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Public participation. There is no one signed up to address the council. However, we always like the opportunity, offer the opportunity for anybody who may have come in late. Is there anybody that wishes to address the council? Seeing none, we will close the public participation session. Resignations and appointments. We have 2 reappointments. Jane Walters, Oak Hills Park Authority. Do I have a motion? Mr. Igneri.
I'd say Jane Walters has been serving on the Oak Hills Park Authority for some time, and she's done a great job. Should be reappointed.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations. And reappointment of Patricia Williams to the Oak Hills Park Authority. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Oh,
Mr.
sorry. Go ahead. We've been through
You
this
pick.
before.
You pick. Ms. O'Toole-Gianderco.
I'll make it fast. We know her and we're going to vote for her anyway.
Any further discussion?
Pat, thank you for your willingness to continue to serve. We are enjoying your financials every month at the Finance Committee, so thank you.
And I thank both of you for your willingness to serve. It's not easy finding people that can give up their time for the large amount of money that they get paid for doing this. But thank you for your willingness to serve. So seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Whenever.
If you would come forward, the clerk will administer your oath of office.
Hello again. We'll do them both at the same time, okay? When I say you, just say your name. Okay. You. Your name? Jane Walters. Having been reappointed as a member of the Oak Hills Park Authority of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill, judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Ask you to sign each of these and give me one back. Here you go. Okay. Because I got you upside down. Here you go. I'll take one and you can keep the second one.
Are you a doctor or an attorney? Okay, same thing. The signature.
Okay, I'll do the second one, sure.
I read that same question in committee, but he wasn't in our policy, so he couldn't.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats. Next item on the agenda, the mayor's remarks. As you probably have read, we were very successful in bringing together the Board of Education and the the NFT, the Norwalk Federation of Teachers, and have successfully negotiated a deal which would avoid the layoffs of 43 kindergarten aides, stop the middle school music program, and also the middle school intramural program. It was an 11th hour deal, and I want to thank the Board of Education, thank the Norwalk Federation of Teachers for being willing to come to the table and have a discussion which we believe and we know is in the best interest of the children of Norwalk, because that's really what we're focused on. I also want to thank my Chief of Staff, Leisha King, who mediated the negotiations and did a remarkable job, as she always does. So we're very, very pleased that we are able to get this done and to not only save the city money, but also to avoid these cuts to the Board of Education budget. Tomorrow evening, June 28th, thank you. Tomorrow evening, June 28th at 4:30, there will be a small reception to say thank you and farewell to Board of Health member Dr. Ed Tracy and the Director of the Health Department, Tim Callahan, upon their retirement. Dr. Tracy has been a member of the Board of Health, I believe, for about 39 years. I think that's if I recall. He is a remarkable person who gave a lot to the city of Norwalk. Tim Callahan is a quintessential professional who is widely regarded and held in high esteem, not only in Norwalk, but throughout the state of Connecticut and beyond. He is the director under whose leadership the Board of Health became the first Board of Health in the state of Connecticut to be nationally accredited. So we thank both of them for their service to the community. If you're free, stop by 4:30 tomorrow afternoon and say thank you to them for their service. On Friday, June 30th, Norwalk will host the Babe Ruth Under-10 softball tournament at Norwalk High School beginning at 12 noon. I'm going to be there, and I will be throwing out the first pitch. So I hope I can throw a strike. Norwalk Fireworks will be held on Monday, July 3rd, Calf Pasture Beach. It's always an amazing event. We have a wonderful display of fireworks. And I ask your patience because it takes about 2 hours to get out of Calf Pasture Beach that night. There is no other way that we can do it. We've tried over and over again different ways, but with all the cars that come in, thousands of cars that come in, it's very difficult to get out in a timely fashion. So it's a wonderful event. If you can come down, they have music, they have other kinds of entertainment, and the fireworks will start right about dark. On July 4th, Rowayton Fireworks will be held at Bailey Beach. It's also a wonderful event in the 6th taxing district, and so come on out and enjoy those as well.
It takes 2 hours to get home as well.
It takes about 2 hours to get home as well. So sit back, relax, bring some snacks, and don't rush out. We now have, whenever we have somebody that has served the city of Norwalk for a long, long time in a capacity for which they don't get paid, we like to thank them. We like to thank them for their service because, as I mentioned before, for the Oak Hills Park Authority, it's always difficult to find people that will give up their time to try to improve the city and make things better for all of our community. Tonight, we recognize a person who has done just that. Sorry. I'd like to take a few minutes to thank one of our residents and volunteers for his 25 years as service as a planning commissioner, Walter McLaughlin, who's here with us tonight. Walter was first appointed to the Planning Commission on April 14th, 1992, by then Mayor Frank Esposito. Walter was reappointed several times by Mayor Esposito and reappointed by Mayor Knopp, Mayor Moshe, and me. He was elected Secretary of the Planning Commission in 2004 and has served in that position for 13 years with his tenure ending last week, June 20th. Walter told me that when his term was up in June, he was going to retire and not seek reappointment. As a commissioner for 25 years, Walter has certainly seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I believe it has been all good in the service to the city of Norwalk. Some of the major highlights: Walter was involved in the implementing of the Plan of Conservation and Development of 1990, worked on the 2008 POCD, was a member of the Wall Street Area Planning Study in 2003, the Mid-Harbor Planning Study in 2005, the Reed-Putnam Urban Renewal Plan Update of 2007, 2016, 2017, and the Washington Street, South Main Street Improvement Area of 2006. He also participated in the adoption of all 4 village districts in Norwalk: East Avenue, Rowayton Avenue, Silvermine Tavern, and the Golden Hill Village District. Norwalk is one of the first communities in the state to adopt village district regulations. On a more recent note, the Sono Collection, Waypoint, Head of the Harbor, Washington Village, and the Sono Hotel. The endeavors that span 25 years as a planning commissioner are too numerous to count. Walter, on behalf of the City of Norwalk, we thank you and commend you for 25 years of unwavering commitment and loyal service to your city. Please come down and accept this certificate of appreciation. Thank you, Walter, for all that you have done. This is but a small token of our appreciation. You have obviously given so much of your time, put your heart and soul, your blood, sweat, and tears into doing everything that you can to improve our community, and we totally appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for reappointing me. Thanks all you guys for voting for me when you did.
Well, you know what? When we have somebody good, we have somebody that knows what they're doing. You brought a wealth of experience, and you have that institutional knowledge that is so important to making sure that we continue to grow and develop. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank all.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Hempstead.
If you don't mind, I'd just like to...
Please, that's more than appropriate.
Walter, before you leave, Walter?
Wait, don't leave yet. Don't leave yet, wait a minute.
Walter, I want to thank you personally for a friendship. Times we disagreed, time we agreed. You got to remember, Walter was like the last standing independent, capital I, City of Norwalk. And I was around when we appointed him in 1992, and that's when I was an independent on the council. And I had the pleasure of serving a few terms with his lovely wife, Pat. But Walter is one of those individuals who really knows Norwalk.
Yes, he does.
Really knows the people of Norwalk. His long-term tenure at the Norwalk Hospital, he learned a lot of things. And Walter, from a personal point, thank you so much for your service. It's really hard to find somebody as committed as you, for let alone the length of term that you stayed committed. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion or comment? Again, thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
We're going to miss you. And I know the Planning Commission.
Wait, there's a new project.
Okay, next item is Council President, Mr. Igneri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to get right down to business tonight. It's been a long evening already. To the consent calendar. Mr. Kimmel's reading the consent calendar tonight, and Mr. Kites is on deck for the next council meeting.
Thank you. Consent calendar, anybody who hears an item they're interested in called. If I read it, that means we've all agreed on it and it passes. So if you hear an item read, that means we will not be discussing it, that it's already passed. Okay, item 6A1. No, Corporation Council is 6A1. Authorize the Mayor, Harry Rilling, acting on behalf of the city, to execute an agreement in the case of Cody Green v. City of Norwalk et al. Docket Civil Number 3, pending in the United District Court, District of Connecticut. Item 7A1. Authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum to use the grounds of Matthews Park for their annual old-fashioned flea market to be held Sunday, September 17th, 2017, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., set up to take place at 7 a.m. on Sunday, the 17th, with teardown no later than 8 p.m. on Sunday, September 17, 2017. Estimated attendance, 3,000. Now, item 7A2, I will read it with a caveat. You will probably notice that it says account to be determined at the end of it. I know the funds have already been approved through our budget process. The funds are in place. Mr. Mokai, who I think is retiring soon, is not able to be here tonight. I'm not sure we have the actual account number, but I do suggest that we do keep it on consent. If anyone feels that we should remove it when I'm done reading the consent calendar, please feel free to do so. That's within your rights. So I'm reading item 7A2. Approve RACE Coastal Engineering for design and professional services related to the replacement of the floating docks located at West Veterans Memorial Park for an amount not to exceed $38,000. Count to be determined. It's money we approved under the Veterans Park project. Like I said, it's already been approved, and I have a feeling this is also time sensitive. Item 7B1A, approve the contract for the Plan of Conservation and Development to Stantec in the amount of $195,000. Item 7B1B, authorize the mayor to sign that contract. Item 7B2A, authorize the submission of a Smart Growth /TOD grant application to the State Office of Policy and Management, requesting the amount of $225,000. Item 7B2B, authorize the mayor to sign submission. Item 7C, is it on or off? What did we decide?
Those plans are off.
Okay. Item 7D1, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order for 4 thermal imaging cameras to High Tech Fire and Safety, Inc., 158 Allen Boulevard, Suite A, Farmingdale, New York, for an amount not to exceed $47,980, $46,613 to be paid for by FEMA through an assisting firefighters grant, and $4,361 to be paid from operating budget. The account is noted. Item 7D2, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agency agreement to permit the Norwalk Hospital to be included in the ICE, that's Intertown Capital Equipment, nothing to do with immigration, the ICE agreement as an authorized agency under the City of Norwalk. The City of Norwalk would then be responsible for Norwalk Hospital EMS use of the equipment, so we will also need to have the authority to enter into a separate agency agreement with Norwalk Hospital, whereby the hospital should provide us with insurance coverage and will be responsible for its actions and omissions in connection with the use of the equipment, and will indemnify and release us against third-party claims and its own claims arising out of the use of the equipment. Item 7D3, authorize the Mayor, Harry Rilling, to execute a sub-grant agreement between the City of Norwalk and Stepping Stones Museum for Children, Inc., to allocate child daycare contract funds not to exceed $52,902.40 for the purpose of running a summer camp for children. There's, I believe, a mistake in the agenda. I will read it as it should have read. After I'm finished, you can make a decision on how to proceed. Item 7D4, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a sub-grant agreement between the City of Norwalk and Odyssey Learning, Inc. I'm replacing Gibson Educational Consulting with Odyssey Learning, Inc. to allocate child daycare contract funds not to exceed $46,289.60 for the purpose of running a summer camp for children. Item 7D5A, authorize the Mayor, Harry Rilling, execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and accept grant funds in the amount of $638,245 from the State of Connecticut for the Sexually Transmitted Diseases and Tuberculosis Control Programs for the period July 1st, 2017 to June 20th, 2022. And item 7D5B, authorize the Mayor, Harry Rilling, to execute any and all documents, agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary to implement the Sexually Transmitted Diseases and Tuberculosis Control Programs for the period July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2022. And that is the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmel. Does anyone have any changes to the consent calendar as read? Seeing no changes, I will call for a vote. Everyone in favor of the consent calendar? Unanimous? Mr. Mayor, I turn the council back to you.
And I will turn it right back to you, Mr. Neri, under Public Works Committee, item 7C1A and 1B.
I'm going to move items 1A and 1B. They're linked. 1A is authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Grosso Companies, LLC for project number RD 2017-2, concrete curbs and sidewalks at various locations for some not to exceed $826,618, subject to the same terms and conditions as award contract PM 2017-1, count number noted. B, authorizes the Public Works Director, Bruce Schimento, to execute orders on contracts with Grosso Companies for the project RD 2017-2, concrete curbs and sidewalks at various locations for some not to exceed $166,763. The value consists of 10% of the contract value plus $84,101 estimated cost for the sidewalk and curb replacement work to be performed by redevelopment agency at side-by-side school at the intersection of Chestnut Street and Henry Street, to be funded by an urban corridor accounts duly noted. Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that Mr. Livingston and I have met with Mr. Grosso, Joe Grosso, and a representative from the Village Creek group and association, and I think they're communicating on much better terms at this point. They exchange telephone numbers, and Mr. Grosso has promised to move the trucks as far forward as he can, close to the street, before they started in the mornings, and the Village Creek people have his telephone number if the trucks are making too much noise in the morning. So I think that with this behind us, and I thank Mr. Livingston in particular, with this behind us, we should vote on the contract and move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Igneri. Mr. Igneri has moved the issue. Mr. Sims.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And I'm going to speak contrary to that. I'm just going to urge the colleagues on the council not to approve these contracts for Grosso, as the company is still has an outstanding obligation to the city, and well over $900,000. This is a company that has not paid taxes to the city since 2007, and I think that we as a council has to be responsible not to again allow cities to do business with the city when they're not in compliance. And it seems like they keep kicking the can down the road by reorganizing their companies and getting contracts all over again, and still without having obligations to the city. So I think that it'd be prudent upon us not to move forward with giving them an additional contract when we just this body approved a contract for them just a few months ago. And I think out of that contract that we approved, I think that was in this somewhere in about almost $10 million. And I think that if they were really serious about being committed to paying their obligations to the city, out of those funds, they would have started drawing down on it. So for me, I don't think that we should be approving additional contracts for this company. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Mr. Livingston?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to talk about this a little bit. I will be voting in favor of it. And as I looked at this and at the committee level, I asked myself, has anything changed from the last contract we considered with Grasso? First off, as we discussed at the time, they are separate entities. Mr. Grasso, Joe Grasso Jr., is separate from his father. That has been established. It has also been established that he is not in violation of any laws now. But that said, we're proposing this contract be approved with the same conditions we put into the last contract. That is, we have the right to terminate the contract in the event that he's in violation of any zoning ordinance or laws. We also can offset any fines or penalties. So that stays the same. And as Mr. McNary stated, he and I met with Mr. Grasso and the president of Farm Creek Homeowners Association last week, and we had a very good meeting. Mr. Grasso seems to be sincere in his efforts to address the neighbors' needs. As Mr. McNary said, he's moving vehicles out in front of the property. He is also instructing his staff to do everything they can to minimize the noise. And he's also, as Mr. McNary mentioned, reached out to give them his contact information. So he seems to be making the efforts we asked him to do last time, which is to be a good neighbor. I would like him to get ahead of this a little bit and reach out to them, but I will speak to him separately on that. But I also want to mention something that raised concerns to me last time, which was the letter that his attorney had sent to some of the neighbors, in which some of us, including myself, viewed that as possibly attempting to stifle some complaints by members of the council. Mr. Grasso has sent the council a note on that, saying he didn't mean to stifle legitimate concerns. At our meeting, he apologized actually to Mr. Hostin, the head of the Village Creek, for having sent the letter. So I take him at his word, and I think, like the rest of us here, I'm sure we will always welcome input from residents, regardless of what any lawyer tells them. So I'm willing to set that aside, and based on these facts, I think we should move forward with this agreement.
Mr. Hempstead.
I'm not supporting this contract, and I'm just, some of it's on personal reasons, the way I just kind of evaluate this. I understand from a non-emotional part and a legal point, you probably got to vote for this in the sense of it meets the smell test from a legal point that could be challenged in the court. Maybe not, but I mean, I think overall, experience has taught me that would probably pan out in favor of maybe Mr. Grasso. But at the same token, I don't think some of this apologies and meetings and that would have happened without some intimidating factor of the probability he might not get a contract approved by the city of Norwalk. It did not come prior to him coming into the city of Norwalk and seeking the job. That will be a test of time. If he's sincere in his efforts with the neighbors, he's sincere in his efforts trying to clean up, and if they can clean up the financial obligations of the owner of the property, which I don't see any, not an arm's length away from the owner of the business, I can't support this kind of thing. And the telling part to me of this is, and I get why you did it, it's a good thing, but to have to put special conditions on a contract for somebody to behave in a certain way, all right, I'm just not buying into it, but I get the legalities, of that. If it came to tie voter, I don't know what I'd do, to be honest with you, but because I'm usually one of those very much to the practical side, but I'm just saying from my own personal, I have the ability and right now to vote no on this, and I won't.
Mr. Bonifant.
Oh, thank you. I do believe Mr. Grasso is making an attempt to be a better neighbor with the Village Creek Association and all the other people, and I got to give everybody a little credit for the progress you made through this. The one thing you can't overlook is that while there, yes, may be special conditions, and if he doesn't abide by them, we can, quote, yank the contract. We're going into July now. You're not going to pull anybody's contract. You're just going to have to deal with it on the following year and remember what worked and what didn't work. So in that regard, I think the conditions are kind of meaningless in that, you're not going to pull his contract in August if he doesn't. And I'm still not sure. The last letter we got from the Zoning Commission said that there was things that were not in compliance there on that site, and I didn't get any letter saying he's all done. He's taking care of everything. So in that regard, I can't say things are like cleaned up or anything like that, because I don't know. But the votes are going to happen one way or another.
Ms. Bowman.
I wasn't here last meeting. Last thing I saw was some letters from members in the community. I did not see any letters or emails with them saying that there was a meeting and now that they're satisfied. So that is hearsay to me. I don't know anything about that. I do know about this letter. They're asking us to disassociate the two businesses, yet their promise to start engines at a certain time and clean things up seems like that is related to the property, which they say are sometimes saying that they are not, owners of or in control of. So for them to control those, would still have to be the owner of that property. And then in the letter, I'm looking at the letter that they sent to the Village Creek. It says Joe Grasso Jr. and Grasso, which then again, this is the second time where they don't seem to be all the time separating themselves from the other company that owes the city money. So for those reasons, I don't see why I don't see how we are going to get in trouble when we have several pieces of evidence that they don't themselves disassociate themselves with the other Grasso company. One being, if you search their name and they pop up on Monta and you click on the website associated, it goes to the old Grasso company. Two being, they're promising to control this site, which they have said is not owned by them. So if they can control the site, then they also are not associating themselves with that other company. And then in the letter, they do not. They say Joe Grasso Jr. and Grasso. It does not say, in one point it says Grasso Companies LLC. As you may be aware, this firm represents. However, second paragraph, it says Joe Grasso Jr. and Grasso, nothing else afterwards. So I don't see how the city can get into legal trouble when they're not disassociating themselves. And since they're not disassociating themselves and that property has not been cleaned up, to my knowledge, no constituent resident has contacted me to say that they are now okay with this. And the last time anyone emailed me, they said they were not okay with this. I have to go by what I last heard, so I will not be voting for this today. And actually, we got a complaint, and then nothing did happen in terms of the city pulling back or doing anything different with the contract that we did award them a month ago or so.
Further discussion. Ms. O'Toole Gianderco.
Thank you. When we had the other item before us about a month ago, I did not support it at this time, and I won't be supporting this tonight. I appreciate giving Mr. Grasso Jr. a second shot and giving him an opportunity, but I don't think awarding another $1 million contract a couple weeks after the last one is giving him any time to show us that he's changing and he's being a good neighbor. It's an awful quick turnaround, and it's enough time to really keep him on his toes. Let's see if a year from now everything's still wonderful. So that's why I won't be supporting it at this time.
Mr. Kimmel.
I spent 4 years in the minority on the council, and from 97 to 2001. And after I found myself in the majority, some folks jokingly said to me, now things will get hard. You've got to be serious. You've got to govern. And that means you often find yourselves in very difficult situations where emotionally you might feel one way, but then after talking to a dozen or so lawyers, you realize it's much more complicated than that. And you have to make a responsible decision that not only balances the needs of particular neighborhoods, particular parts of the city, but also protects the city from expensive exposure, legally speaking. This is obviously a very difficult situation to deal with. The structure of the companies have been examined repeatedly. We have added conditions to the contracts. We have done what we could do to deal with a very difficult situation, and now we have to make very hard and responsible decisions. We don't want to act what would be perceived recklessly and find ourselves in court dealing with a settlement in executive session a few years later that could cost us millions in damages besides actual compensation. So we have to be very careful. And like I said, being in majority sometimes is very hard. You have to do the right thing or try your best to do the right thing. So I'm going to support that. Even though, to be honest with you, if not for the Grasso Company 20 years ago, Kay and I would be living in Village Creek. Okay? But we made inquiries and things were going one way or the other way, and we decided maybe that's not for us. So I understand how difficult this is, But on the other hand, we have to deal with what we consider the best interests of the city going forward to deal with a very complicated situation. So I'm going to support it.
Mr. Igneri.
I want to thank Mr. Kimmel for his comments. It is a very difficult situation, a very difficult decision, and we have looked at it a number of different ways. And I think we need to move forward, and it's the right decision to approve this contract.
Mr. Heidies?
You haven't spoken.
Yes, just quickly. I think at this point we made our bed and we need to lie in it. Knowing the process and the legalities, as Mr. Hempstead and Mr. Kimmel spoke about, the likelihood of our sidewalks and curbs not being done, if we were not to approve this, is high. And in the process being the sidewalks, the curbs, and then the roads. So I'm not comfortable sitting here and not having our sidewalks and roads paved. I know, issues aside, and like I say, all eyes are on Grasso at this point. So I will be supporting this tonight, and I think it's the responsible thing to do, because I could not live with our sidewalks and curbs not being done this year. Thank you.
Mr. Livingston and Mr. Sims.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify a couple points. One, and I don't know if I misspoke, but Mr. Grasso did not tell me that he was going to be policing the entire grounds. He never said any such thing. He said he was policing his own equipment. So there was no confusion there as to what he was doing. He wasn't taking responsibility for the property. He never said he was, as we didn't think he did. There was also a comment about the police complaint. We've looked into that, and it was for starting the vehicles up earlier, which apparently he has to do. I mean, he was doing it in order to get to the city-mandated work sites at the proper time. He wasn't doing it for any other reason than just perform his contract. So I think we need to bear that in mind. And finally, just on the statement about a violation of the zoning laws, I personally checked, and I think others have may have as well, with Mr. Wren, and there were no violations against that Joe Grasso and Joe Grasso's company. There are violations against the owner, Joe Grasso, or Grasso Sr. on the property, but not against the separate entity, which is what we've been discussing. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Sims.
Yes, this is just in response to Mr. Kaiser's comment about, he would like sidewalks. He would like to be walking on, decent sidewalks or something to that. But these are sidewalks here is on Chestnut and Henry Street, which is in South Norwalk. Folks in my district, we want our sidewalks fixed. There's sidewalks in South Norwalk that hasn't been fixed in over almost 35 years that folks been complaining about for quite a long time. And to repair these sidewalks in Chestnut and Henry, I'm all in support of getting the sidewalks fixed. But I'm in support of going with the new contractor, which should be the next contract that was that put in for the bid, that has the next lowest bid, and not will keep awarding a company that's been out of compliance for several years and continue to be out of compliance, even though they change or reorganize their companies as they've done already a couple of times. And they continue to ignore their responsibility to the taxpayers and to the city of Norwalk. So if we continue to keep kicking this can down the road, when will it end? Next thing you know, I probably won't be on the council, and maybe our kids will be on the council, and it still be a company owned by their kids. And guess what? This company here could potentially be owing the city another, $1 million. But the kids reorganize, and guess what? They're not on the hook for it. So when are we going to stop the buck and say, enough is enough? Let this company, let this family, let them come into compliance all the way around. Then I think everybody will feel comfortable with giving the Grassos or whoever contracts to do business with the city. This just, I just don't feel that we're being responsible. It kind of just almost like it's like a favoritism thing here. We're picking and choosing who we're going to hold to that standard, and then that seems to be like we're just kind of looking at the way when it's coming to this company here. And like I said, I don't personally have anything against Grasso or any company for that matter. But if we're going to hold hold all companies to this standard, this has to include Grasso as well. Thank you.
Mr. Soresis.
We just awarded a contract of, what, $10 million, I forget what it was, to them less than 30 days ago, and we put restrictions on them. And I know that we're saying that we have eyes on them. Yeah, we do. We have eyes on them to make sure they're in compliance with the things we put forth in the last awarded contract to make sure they're on the up and up. 30 days, it's not a very long time to have even one eye on them, to be honest with you. And I'm not comfortable awarding another one when they haven't proven that they're going to do something. Do I want sidewalks and roads fixed? Of course we do. That's what all of us do here. That's just a generalized political statement. Yes, we all want roads and sidewalks fixed. The problem is we awarded something to someone that was questionable, and we did it with restrictions we put on that we were going to monitor. And that's something that I think we should all take seriously before we think of awarding another one, because we haven't even gone past the 30-day limit. And then on top of that, the thing that really set me off in the direction of no as a vote is the fact that, excuse me, you have something to say, Mr.? I'm sorry. The things that I don't understand is this letter that was received, that was written by their attorney, it's not like it was scribbled on a piece of handwritten paper and to stifle the neighbors or something. Thought was taken. So you go to a lawyer, you pay a lawyer. There's lawyers here on the council. You don't get that for free, a letter. They had to put thought into it. They had to have the letter written. It had to be approved by the principal for the lawyer to issue it. So to me, I mean, I hate to say it, but it sounds like the letter to me, the first when I heard it, I was shocked, and it seemed like something out of Boardwalk Empire. So I have to vote no, because I don't feel the good faith in that letter, just saying, sorry, we didn't mean to write the letter. It took thought to write that letter, and it was a pretty scary letter to the people that live in that area. So I can't vote no. They need more than 30 days with our eyes on them to make a decision.
Ms. Bowman.
Point of information. It's twice it's been said that the last agreement with Grasso was about $10 million. I believe it was a little bit over $3.
I don't remember that.
If I remember correctly,
I didn't remember.
Just so if it's reported, it's clear. It was not
Thank
$10
you,
million.
Ms. Bowman.
Yes. So I heard something, we're worried about Grasso, but in my opinion, the folks of Village Creek have their own grievances that they can wage against the city. If the trucks are starting early because they have to get to a city project, that's a problem. And if the police aren't doing anything because they're getting to a city project, that's a problem. I personally don't condone them starting early, even if it's a city project, because that's against our ordinances and rules and regulations. I don't know who came first, the businesses on Meadow Street and Wilson Avenue or Village Creek, but I don't know who knows the story of Village Creek. Village Creek, the owners or the settlers that first came to, and I call them settlers, for those of you anyone who knows Village Creek will know why I call them settlers, but the story of that land is you had some Jewish, African American individuals who wanted to purchase the land, and they were discriminated against, and the land would not be sold to them. So they had someone of European, Caucasian, race that would not be discriminated against purchase the land, and then he then sold it off to different individuals, Jewish, African American individuals, because he was not of the mindset that they should be discriminated against. So what are we doing to them? And then also, what are we also doing to the individuals on Meadow Street, Meadows Garden, and what have you? We're discriminating against them. This wouldn't happen in Rowayton. It wouldn't. Trucks starting at 6, 7 a.m., no one will be saying, oh, let's give them another chance after this. You would be saying they need to get gone, they need to stop, they need to shut them down, and they would be shut down. We're not asking them to shut down. We're asking them to clean up what they have. We just gave them a contract, and right now, we're going to see. Like folks have said, 30 days is not enough. We're going to see. We want to see things cleaned up. and then we go from there. Councilman Sims made some great points. When would it stop? If we don't do something about it right now, when will it stop? Now, I'm asking you all to actually, even those of you who've said yes, to vote this now, and this is not no forever. This is let's see what you'll do, what they will do without another contract. Will they still clean it up? You can still clean it up because you have to. I mean, it's within our laws. Will you still clean it up? And then, if they do, then we can do business. And if they don't, then we didn't do anything to further discriminate and hurt those residents that are in Village Creek, that are on Meadow Street, on Wilson Avenue, that have to live with this every day. And it's not just them. You have a few more that I'm interested in looking at because I know they've had some issues. And so it's not just them. But everybody along, we talked about buffers before. We talked about just everything, quality of life, quality of living. Let's stand up. Let's do something about it.
Mr. Kites and then Mr. Igneri.
Yeah, just quickly, it was said that somehow, I don't know, I presume that I'm not sympathetic to the neighbors in Grasso, and honestly, if this were as easy as awarding this bid to the next lowest bidder and paying that higher premium, I got to be honest with you, at this point, I think I would support that. But no, speaking to legal counsel and to others, that the process would be a lawsuit by Mr. Grasso followed by an injunction, therefore equaling sidewalks don't get paved. So I'm just dealing with the reality of what's happening right now, and please don't let it be said that I'm not sympathetic to Village Creek or the residents of the neighborhoods. Hopefully, with all this pressure put on Mr. Grasso, that things will change. It'll hurt his pocketbook. It'll hurt his bottom line. My hope is that this will, but at this point, I'm willing to support this because of the situation we're in right now.
Mr. Igneri.
I'd just like to clarify one point. Grasso is perfectly within its rights to start its trucks in the morning, whether it's 6 o'clock or 6:30 or 7. What they're not allowed to do before 7 o'clock is load construction equipment, cement trucks, so forth and so on. So they're legal. It's legal. We've talked to the police about it. So I think we just keep going around and around on this. We discussed the same issues. We discussed it a month ago. It is a separate entity. I've talked to the lawyers. We legally should not be discriminating against Grasso Jr. For what's going on with the owner of the property. And therefore, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call the question and to a vote at this point.
Okay.
Roll call votes.
Roll call vote. Ms. King.
Question, procedure, are we voting on calling the vote? That's what's been in the motion. The motion on the floor to call the vote. That's different than voting for the motion.
No.
Well,
I'm calling a vote on the motion.
On the motion. The motion is on the floor to approve 1A and 1B. Mr. Igneri is calling for the vote on that issue.
Roll call, correct?
Procedurally, when you call a vote, with that procedure, you're cutting debate off. And you're saying, I'm calling the question. You vote on that separately, then you vote on the item. That was my question.
That's a fair point, and procedurally, I think that's correct. So, but I don't think that was the intent. I think the intent was that you assumed the discussion was
concluded.
So,
we're just voting on what's before. That's why I'm just
therefore,
clarification.
Maybe just to clarify, is there any more discussion on this?
I have one question for Mr. Cimento, if I might.
Mr. Cimento?
And he has to withdraw the motion.
Sorry to bother you.
Excuse me, before you just withdraw your motion.
Yeah, thank you.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Clarify it.
What are the implications of not approving this tonight in terms of timing of the next bidder and so forth?
We'd have to bring the next bidder back to the DPW committee for approval, and then bring it to the next council meeting after the committee meets. The committee meeting, as far as I know right now, the DPW committee is not meeting in July. We would be meeting the first week in August, and that means that we would be awarding a bid to the second bidder the second week in August. which cuts our time frame down pretty much.
Does everything still get done?
Probably not.
Thank you.
Mr. Sims.
Well, at the same time, the chair of DPW, he can call for a special meeting, and as long as he has a quorum, they can vote to approve the next highest bidder. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So nothing precludes them from calling a special meeting to have a quorum, at least 4 members there, to approve the next highest bidder.
Further questions, discussion for Mr. Schimento, Mr. Kimmel?
And it's equally possible that the Grosso Corporation could ask a judge to impose an injunction.
It is, but I can't answer that. I'm not a lawyer.
But it's possible.
Oh, yes, very much so.
I think we should avoid trying to speculate about the city's liabilities.
Of course.
It's a fair point, but I'm always concerned about what we put on the record.
Further discussion or questions for Mr. Schimento? Okay, further discussion on the item before us. I heard somebody ask for a roll call vote. Is that correct? Mr. Akides asked for a roll call vote. Clerk, would you please?
You don't get a roll call.
Mr. Bonifant?
No.
Mr. Corsello?
Yes.
Mr. Hempstead?
No.
Mr. Kimmel?
Yes.
Mr. Sachinelli?
Yes.
Ms. Melendez?
Yes.
Mr. Sarasis?
No.
Ms. Bowman?
No.
Mr. Sims?
No.
Mr. Kides?
Yes.
Ms. O'Toole Gianderco?
No.
Mr. Igneri?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
7 yes.
Did you vote, though?
I called him, yeah?
Yeah, Mr. Hempstead voted.
Yep. It passes.
So what are the noes?
7-6.
6.
7 yeses, 6 noes, the motion carries. There is no other business before the council, but...
Since we're not going to executive session, if people could please, if everybody could please hand me back the envelope.
Can I make one? Is it
Yes,
allowed to
Ms.
make a
Bowman.
statement? Yes, and for the record, whether I'm on the council or next term or not, I think it's completely ridiculous how often you all vote against what's right for South Norwalk. And I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying a lot of you, especially Democrats. We live in South Norwalk. We know what's best for our people. We know what's going on down there. I encourage anybody who wants to open a construction business, anything, to go down to Rowayton, to go over to Silver Mine and Cranberry and open yourself a business and do business over there. And let's see how they like it. And then we all can vote for those businesses to continue. We have trucks, all types of pollution, everything down in South Norwalk. Yes, these sidewalks are for South Norwalk. However, Village Creek has told you a number of times, a side deal, quiet conversation with the Village Creek Association does not count and speak for the voice of Village Creek, and that person did not even communicate with the rest of the council about that decision. So I question how he even feels about this. Okay? So
I actually reached out to that person in response.
well, I like to see things written. I like my things in email because hearsay, he did not email the entire
Why
council.
wasn't distributed to the council?
Okay,
He
can
did
we,
not email the entire council.
let's not talk across each other, please.
So, South Norwalk, I want to make sure you see, these are Democrats that continually vote against your quality of life. And I'm not going to say the mayor, because the mayor actually I'm not going to make any comment. But these council members, these Democrats, especially the ones that are large, continually vote against South Norwalk. So you take note. And that's a friend or no friend. When the people from South Norwalk ask you to vote a certain way, you should take note. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I want to hang around. It's pretty good.